What's up, guys? We're now on part 2 of the most famous cryptid slash myth in every US state in the United States. We're doing all the western states in this video, which is a lot. But quick disclaimer, a lot of these creatures are super weird, especially towards the end of the video, and come from sightings that are told by word of mouth, but the main purpose of this series is to entertain you by telling alleged accounts of these stories, so take them all with a grain of salt. All that being said, thank you for watching, and let's get into it. First up, we got Alaska with the Tizheruk. Also known as the Loch Ness Monster of Alaska, the Tizheruk is a mythical creature from Inuit religion. It's described as being a 15 to 30 foot long sea serpent with a flipper like a fish. It's said to inhabit the subarctic waters near Key Island, Alaska in the Bering Sea. Some believe this creature may have been what Steller's sea ape was, which was this crazy apish slash dog looking sea monster that this old sailor wrote about seeing in the Gulf of Alaska around the 1700s, but he saw it for a long time, like up close for about an hour. The Tizheruk has been said by some to kill hunters, and Alaskans and local Inuit people claim that it snatched people off of piers without them even noticing its presence. In 2009, a fisherman got what many believe is a video of a Tizheruk. This is a pretty cool creature. It's got quite a few sightings, and surprisingly, it's not within the Alaskan Triangle, which, if you don't know, that's a triangular area in Alaska where people and planes go missing and a lot of sightings of weird things happens. Moving on even further south and west, we have Hawaii. Hawaii has some really cool legends, but none as famous as the Menehune. The Menehune of Hawaii are said to be a mythological race of dwarf people in Hawaiian tradition. They're said to live in deep forest and hidden valleys of the Hawaiian Islands and in areas that are hidden far away from human settlements. It's said they're only able to be seen by children and humans that are connected to them, and they only come out at night and are incredible at building things. They build temples, fish ponds, roads, canoes, and houses. Today, there's even some structures that still stand that Hawaiian folklore gives credit to the Menehune for building. Despite there not being 100% clear evidence of the Menehune, there was a census taken in 1820 where 65 residents of the Hawaiian island of Kauai were Menehune. So they took this census, and apparently out of the 2,000 people on the island of Kauai, 65 of them said that they were Menehune, or they said 65 were. I'm not really sure if it was one or the other, but pretty cool. Moving on to California. These horrifying creatures are the Dark Watchers. They're described as being these up to 15 feet tall, dark shadow figures with no facial features that are often seen wearing hats that just stand and stare in the distance, and they're said that if you're watching them and you blink, they often just disappear. So the native Chumash tribe of California's Central Coast said that they've been seeing these figures for thousands of years, and they refer to the Dark Watchers as the Old Ones, even though these native people have been there for at least 1,000 years. They're most often reported being seen at night, watching travelers from the horizon along the Santa Lucia mountain range. According to legend, no one has seen them up close, but they disappear whenever you get close to them. And honestly, it's pretty crazy how many people claim to have seen these things. I actually did a video on TikTok about these, and I had like 5 comments from different people in California saying that they had seen them. Pretty crazy. Moving on to Nevada. People who have been to Lake Tahoe, Nevada, have you seen Tahoe Tessie? Stories of Tahoe Tessie stretch back to the legends told by Washoe and Paiute tribes. It's been described as looking like a serpent-like monster or a gigantic eel or even a plesiosaur, which some people think that it is a plesiosaur or even a mosasaur because a lot of fossils of those old creatures were found in the surrounding Nevada desert that's all close to Lake Tahoe. Other theories say it might be a population of sturgeon or even a new species of freshwater eel. Legend has it that this serpent-like monster lives in a cave beneath the lake, and sightings of this 80-foot-long serpent known as Tahoe Tessie continue to this day. I even read a report where there's some divers that claim they saw something huge swim out of a cave while they were underwater diving in the same lake in Lake Tahoe. In Oregon, we have another water monster. It's called Colossal Claude. It's said by one onlooker that it has the head of a camel, coarse gray fur, and is roughly 40 feet long. That's a big boy. A famous sighting was in 1939 by halibut fishermen who claimed they saw Colossal Claude only 10 feet from their ship in the Columbia River as it stole and ate halibut off their fishing lines. Later in 1963, the Shell Oil Company got a video of something off the coast of Oregon that's near the Columbia River that was 15 feet long with barnacles ridged down its back. And this was really deep. This is like 180 feet deep, and many believe this was Colossal Claude. but the video that they took granted this creature the name Marvin the Monster. An explanation for these sightings could be a big jellyfish or a whale, but others believe it's a surviving plesiosaur also. Alright, now Washington. Can you guess what it is? Don't cheat, go to the comments and comment what you think it is right now. Alright, you did it? Yeah, it's Bigfoot. So to start off, there's various other similar creatures that allegedly inhabit different regions throughout the world that are similar to Bigfoot, such as the skunk ape of the southeast United States, the Yeti of Asia, and the Yowie of Australia. Some believe these creatures have a common ancestor or somehow related, and maybe even a descendant of the Gigantopithecus, which, if you don't know, this is a giant extinct ape creature that stood at about 10 feet tall. The Sasquatch, or Bigfoot's fame, can be traced back hundreds of years to Native American legends. On the Tule River Indian Reservation in California, there's actually 500 to 1,000-year-old petroglyphs, which are these rock carvings that look to depict a group of Bigfoot. These petroglyphs are called the family. However, the earliest written account was made in 1811 by David Thompson, who was mapping regions in Canada and the United States. He said that a local Native American tribe in Washington, the Spokanes, believed in a hairy race of giants that lived on top of a nearby mountain, and that these giants would often come down and steal salmon or even people from their tribe while they were asleep. Thompson said the giants left a footprint that looked like a human's that was 1.5 feet long. The origin of the name Bigfoot can actually be traced back to an incident in 1958 where a group of loggers kept discovering these human-like 16-inch footprints around their job site in California. They also kept having a 450-pound oil drum move around without explanation, and they think it may have been the Bigfoot. Bigfoot is also by far the most famous cryptid in the US, if not the most famous in the world. The Loch Ness Monster might have it beat, I'm not for sure. Anyways, we're going to move on to Idaho. In Idaho, some of the region's native people have long feared an evil spirit dwelling in Big Payette Lake. And throughout the 1900s, there was many reports of a dinosaur-like creature that was first named Slimy Slim before a local newspaper had a contest to find a better name for it, where they changed its name to Sharlie. Sharlie is described as being 35 feet long, having a dinosaur head, humps like a camel, and shell-like skin. Some people think that this is a real picture of it. Sharlie was reportedly sighted dozens of times between 1956 and the last documented sighting in 2002. Moving on to Utah, we have the Bear Lake Monster. So it's described as resembling a 50-foot-long serpent with short legs and a head like a crocodile. Stories of this cryptid grew in the late 1800s after Joseph Rich, a Mormon colonizer, published a story about it in the local newspaper. Joseph offered a prize to anyone who could capture the Bear Lake Monster, but then he later admitted that the stories were just a lie to attract tourism in the area. However, there were similar sightings to this creature after this incident, and the last reported sighting was in 2007. Alright, these next ones are really interesting. So Montana, quick disclaimer, this monster is technically real. Whether or not it's a monster is up for debate. So in 1886, a rancher killed and mounted this wolf-like thing, which had pestered the local natives for generations. In this area in Montana, there's a legend of this large wolf/hyena-looking thing that's become known as the Shunka Warak'in, which that name means carry-off dogs because it's said to often sneak into indigenous camps at night and steal their dogs. This creature was known in this area really well because it had been terrorizing the surrounding counties in Montana for generations. It's attributed with killing a grand total of 120 sheep, and many believe it was possibly a leftover direwolf from the Ice Age. Witnesses who got a good look at the Shunka Warak'in described it as being nearly black and having high shoulders and a back that sloped downward a lot like a hyena. So today, the owner of the stuffed Shunka Warak'in refuses to have it DNA tested, even though people have offered to DNA test it for him. So the monster part still remains a mystery. But if you want to, you can still go see it in the Madison Valley History Museum in Montana. Alright, moving on to Wyoming. Obviously we have the jackalope, of course. So this is another cryptid that's technically confirmed real. So the jackalope is rumored to be an antlered species of rabbit that's a cross between a pygmy deer and a now extinct killer rabbit. It's said to be very vicious and run at 90 miles an hour, and the cowboys even used to report it mimicking their voices and singing along with them around the campfire. And it's said that the jackalope could be caught by putting a flask of whiskey out at night, and then the jackalope would drink it until it was intoxicated and make it easier to hunt. And the reason they'd want to hunt it is because they said that in some parts of the United States, jackalope meat tastes similar to lobster. That would be good. And legend also has it that the female jackalopes could be milked because they would sleep belly up, and that the milk could be used for a variety of medicinal purposes. Alright, so besides all that, there's actually a true explanation for the existence of a horned rabbit. The horns reported to be seen on rabbits may have actually been a cancerous tumor known as Shote papilloma, which this is a warty, cancery thing that, if it persists, it can actually look like antlers that stick out of their head. Alright, for Colorado, we have the famous Slide Rock Bolter. The story of the Slide Rock Bolter comes from North American lumberjack camps, which, if you don't know, lumberjacks in the 18 to 1900s would often tell really cool folklore / mythical stories of creatures that they would see while out on their job, and they tell it around the campfire. So according to that folklore, the bolter was believed to live in the mountains of Colorado. But not just on any mountain, but on a mountain that has more than a 45-degree angle. It's described as having a huge head, small eyes, and a large mouth, and also having a tail like a dolphin with enormous grab hooks that it would use to grab onto the side of the mountain. It also looks similar to a giant whale. All day long, this creature would just wait for tourists or helpless animals to go below it, because tourists were its favorite food for some reason. At the right moment, it would lift its tail, loosening its grip on the mountain, descend rapidly down the slope with its mouth wide open, and swallow up anything and everything in its path. Whole parties of tourists were reported to be gulped up in one scoop. Then when it reached the bottom, it would use its own momentum to climb back up to the top of another mountain. So according to these stories, there was a forest ranger whose district was in between Ophir Peaks and Lizard Head. And he was really concerned with the safety of his people in the area because a lot of tourists were going missing. And he got the bold idea of decoying the Slide Rock Bolter to its own destruction. He created a dummy that looked like a tourist by dressing it with a Norfolk jacket, knee breeches, and a guidebook to Colorado, which I guess looked like a tourist back in the day. Then he filled this dummy with giant powder and filament caps and posted it in a conspicuous place where, sure enough, the next day it attracted the attention of the Slide Rock Bolter, which had been hanging for days on the slope of Lizard Head. The bolter ended up eating the dummy, and the resulting explosion flattened half the buildings in Rico, Colorado, which were never rebuilt. Which I guess is a town that doesn't have any buildings in it, and I guess that's how they explain that it's empty. And legend has it the surrounding hills fed flocks of buzzards for the rest of the summer because of how much meat came from the explosion of that giant wheel. The lumberjacks say that since this incident, there have been no sightings of Slide Rock Bolters, but some believe it still thrives in the Colorado Rockies. And that is it for all the western states. This is part 2 of my 5-part series of all the most famous cryptid / mythical creatures in all the states of America. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the subscribe button, maybe give me a little like. Also comment any honorable mentions of creatures that you'd like to hear about. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.